Hey everyone, I'm Madilynn, the Chapter Goddess. I'm a mom, author, blogger, freelancer, host, and overall creative. I really like to sit down and chat with authors and other creatives to hear what they add to the creative world in general. How do they bring their authentic selves to life in what they do? Our authenticity is important, especially in the world today. So sit back and relax and grab a cup of coffee, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's meet this episode's guest. Hey guys, Madilynn here with the Chapter Goddess. I've got a fantastic author guest for you guys to meet today. We're going to chat about their books, life, anything that influences things, and maybe a bit about social media. So without further ado, let me bring them in and let them introduce themselves.
Hello, thank you, Maddie, for having me here. My name is Christina. My pen name is CM Alongi. That's a hard G, not a soft G. And I am a science fiction and fantasy author and a TikTok content creator. My novella series, the Blackwing series, the first 5 books are coming out this year. Book 1, To Kill a Necromancer, just dropped this past Friday. And book 2, Hedgarab's Curse, comes out March 17th.
Ooh. So tell me more about the series you have coming out.
So it's a pretty classic epic fantasy, ragtag team of heroes gradually accumulates and gets together, and they're forced to work together to save the world. Very classic that way. The biggest differences is that, one, the world is set, it's inspired largely by ancient Greece and Rome. It's not another medieval Europe knockoff. It's very much Bronze Age. The pantheon of gods that fiddles with the world are anyone who was into Percy Jackson or just has that passing childhood interest in Greek mythology is going to recognize some parallels because Greek mythology is awesome and fascinating, and everyone in there is just a hot bisexual mess, and it's great. So there's that. Speaking of, it's also a queer fantasy. Pretty much every single major character is somewhere in the LGBTQIA plus rainbow, which, you know, I'd say it's fun to write, but it's just like, it's just people. they're just doing what they do. So yeah, so there's that, and they're novellas, so they're short, and you can just bite-sized, eat them up over the course of a weekend max.
Ooh, binge read specialty.
Oh, yeah.
I am a huge binge reader myself, so that is definitely like right up my alley. Although size definitely doesn't matter when I get to binge reading.
Size never matters, Maddie. It's all about the technique.
Oh man, it's so early in the show. We've already put our little...
We've already traumatized any children watching this. If you're under the age of, I'd say 18, but let's be real. If you're under the age of 16, just clear our consciences and just zip on out of here, okay? Please, thanks.
Yes. So what drew you into the Roman and Greek mythology?
It's just always been an interest of mine. I'm a huge Rick Riordan fan. He's one of my all-time favorite authors. So, you know, Percy Jackson and the Heroes of Olympus. Never got into Red Pyramid, but I just, you know, I caught with Percy Jackson during the height of my Greek mythology phase in middle school and high school. I think we all kind of go through that. Like, it's one of the few subjects in our English classes where we're like, this is actually really interesting. Tell me more. Like, he kidnapped his wife, and like he had how many children, and like she did what? And it's just that's basically just thousands of years of spilled tea. It's great, and some of us just never kind of leave that phase, and so it's just really fun. The technology at the time has, you know, you're used to seeing the knights in shining armor. You're used to seeing castles that are built in certain ways to defend against certain attacks, catapults, all that stuff. So, but the ancient world had very different technology, and thus they have very different limitations. They had different types of medicines. And so it's just really cool to see like how that plus magic can make this whole world work. And how does that change and evolve over the course of the story?
Yeah. That is awesome. And
also just a killer aesthetic. Let's be real here.
Yeah, no, I was asking about the world building and stuff. Did you have to do a lot of research on it to tie in the proper scenery and structure of the building?
I mean, some. There was definitely some Googling, like, what did the ancient Greeks and Romans eat when they were traveling? Like, how did they travel? What were their weapons made out of? What were some of their clothes? But I already knew a lot of how that world works because I'm a huge nerd. And so it was kind of already here. And then a lot of it was just kind of world built on my own. A lot of the political systems in book 2, Hedgarib's Curse, they come across a city-state. For those of you who don't know, a city-state was almost like a mini kingdom. Like there was that one city, like, Athens comes to mind, or Sparta, where you have that one city that the entire city-state is named after, and then it also controls the farmlands and some villages around it. And while it can conquer and control other areas, for the most part, the city-state home base is just that. And there are thousands of them across ancient Greece and Rome before empires started to kind of meld them together again. And then they broke apart, more city-states. And then as the medieval era came in, they transformed to duchies and minor kingdoms in the feudal system. So we're hitting city-states where, it's like that. It's basically one city and the surrounding farmland controlled by a royal family. And that's kind of the base that I sprang from. There's not a whole lot of political intrigue. I'm just given the basic framework of, like, these are the people in charge of this place that the main characters are going to, and so they have to deal with them this way.
Yeah.
And that can be really fun, and it's especially interesting building political and socioeconomic systems when there's no patriarchy. Yeah. Because in the real world, the patriarchy has defined so much of how we do power. Like, the throne goes to the firstborn son instead. Well, when you don't have a patriarchy, when you don't have sexism, I considered having some of that in my world, but I was just like, I'm tired. I don't want to do that. I did that in Citadel. That's my science fiction novel that comes out in June. I'm not doing that here. I just want one world where there is no patriarchy, there's no sexism, there's no homophobia. This woman can be a paladin. She can wear armor and swing a sword and have, like, the authority of a god on her side, and no one's going to question that. They'll question her youth because she's only like 21 years old, but they won't question her because she has tits. Okay. Yeah. So that's creating a political system around that idea is just like, oh yeah, I don't have to worry about, this king's not going to fret because he doesn't have a son. He has a daughter. That's fine. Yeah. So that it solves a lot of political problems that have historically cropped up, but it also kind of creates new ones because people that wouldn't have been a threat before, or who wouldn't have had political power before, now have political power in this system. And so that creates new allies, but new obstacles, new issues, new enemies that the main character, Genua, is going to have to deal with.
Yeah. So between the Citadel and the To Kill a Necromancer, do they both have strong female characters?
Oh yeah, no, I don't. Sorry, let me try this again. Yes, they do. I'm a sucker for women characters, obviously. So it's like I can write dudes, and I can occasionally even have them be main characters, but like. We have centuries of that. Come on, give me a girl. So To Kill a Necromancer and the Blackwing novella series, it features Genua. I mentioned she's a paladin. In this world, paladins are people who, you got this pantheon of gods, right? You got like Jadim, the king of the gods, fire, sun deity, honor, war, some healing. His wife is a fertility goddess. He's got several children. He's got a brother who's like a different type of war god. You got a god of the mind, a god of peace, a god of healing. And all these deities, Hedgarib is a god of disease. Mm-hmm. And his curse deals with disease. And they all have this hierarchy of followers. And in the mortal world, they have paladins. And these paladins have a little bit of their power. Genua is a paladin of Jadim. She has some fire powers. She has some war power. She has bursts of superior strength and speed. And with that power, she basically goes about the world and she does quests. She, tries to expand Jadim's influence in the world. She basically tries to make her boss proud, and do his bidding in the mortal world. And the more she does that, the more power she gets, and the more revered she gets, and the more respect she gets. But if she screws up, she can be, fired is both the literal and figurative term here. If you're a paladin and you displease your deity, you're not a paladin anymore, and you can even be, so there are stakes for her, and she's brand new. Her first ever mission into kill a necromancer is to go kill a necromancer that has terrorized this small town with an army of zombies. And it's her first ever mission. And she's like, I got to do this. This is my mission. It was given to me, and I don't need anyone else's help doing it. And, some people around her are like, you need a little bit of help, like just a smidgen, just a tiny bit. So there's that. She's very proud and headstrong and stubborn. Which are both strengths and weaknesses for her as the series progresses. She's very much the I am right, I am virtuous, I literally serve the god of honor, and we are right in all things. And she meets this other character who's like, no, actually. Awesome. So yeah, there's that. There's the whole like almost sheltered lifestyle of like, this is the way the world works, very black and white, good versus evil. And then she actually goes out in the world. She's like, oh,
great.
Okay. Yes. Very much so. And then Citadel, which is a science fiction novel, takes place on an alien planet. You got a human city that's basically dealing with, they think they're demons. They're aliens. They're basically wolves with wings, telepathy, and telekinesis. And the main character in that one is Olivia. She's a nonverbal autistic, and she basically has this chance encounter with one of these demons. Mm-hmm. And she realizes that everything that Citadel, her town, has told her about them, that they're just animals, that they're evil, that they're beasts, all this stuff. Not true. They're sentient. She figures that out very quickly. And so she basically goes onto a very ill-advised, very dangerous solo mission into the forest where they live, and tries to figure out, okay, what's going on here? Why have we been fighting these creatures for 400 years? How did they get their sentience? Why did they kill my boyfriend in the prologue? Can you guys answer that for me, please? So she, unlike Genoa, she is kind of physical like Genoa. She can fight, but she's a lot more intellectual. She's much more, she's a scientist, so she's much more fact and science driven. She's a little more open-minded, and she doesn't have magic fire powers. So, that's a little knock against her favor, but she is still really cool. I do have a soft spot for Olivia and what she does, and she's very empathetic and has a little more self-doubt issues, largely because, unlike Genoa, she does live in a patriarchal society. And she also lives in an ableist society, and she's nonverbal autistic. So there is a lot of more external pressures against her that are trying to squeeze her into this box of being like, you need to be like this. And Olivia's just like, I'm not going to do that. And I know you're going to hate me, and that's totally fine. I hate you guys too. You killed my mom, so it's fine.
Man, so she's got some trauma then too on top.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, no, like it's not a spoiler. It's in like, there's a flashback in chapter 3 or 4 where we find out that her mom was executed for basically heresy. This Citadel is very dogmatic and religious, and Olivia's mother, Sarah, was also a scientist and questioned the church and the government and everything else, and was just like, this is a problem. This is hypocritical. This just hurts people. All that stuff. And she was found out, and she was caught, and she was tried, and she was executed via drowning in front of her 13-year-old daughter.
Oh.
So yeah, that's the type of stories that I like to write.
So does she have any issues with water then?
Not really with water, because she lives in the middle of the flooded forest. Like, you can't really have an issue with water. She doesn't have an issue with water. She has an issue with the town with the religious institution and the government institution and all these power institutions that basically are like, act this way and do this and do as we say without question or you're gonna get it. And she's just like, I just can't do that. Sorry, not sorry.
Oh man. But I like that you have the strong like female characters, because that's definitely, like, growing up, that was something I never found.
Right.
Too. And I was, because like, I want to write the things that I couldn't find when I was younger. It was always like the damsel in distress, or the guy was the powerhouse and the girl was second. And like,
yeah. No, I know. I twigged onto that too. I wanted way more Mulans and way less Sleeping Beauties. Literally, Citadel is what I've been working on since I was 12.
Nice.
14 years of my life has been dedicated to this manuscript, and Olivia has always been a part of it. She wasn't always the main character, but she very quickly got to that point.
Yeah.
And I designed her specifically because, I wanted to see more characters like her. I wanted to see, she wasn't autistic back then. That's a recent addition. I myself am neurotypical. But I wanted to see more characters more women characters who were smart, who were strong, who were fearless, who instigated and did stuff. And that's what I wanted to see. And that thread continues. And then as my understanding of the modern day patriarchal system and sexism and gender roles and everything else, as I became more aware of all that stuff, I also started fiddling with the gender roles with all the other characters too. So Olivia is pretty traditionally masculine in terms of her pursuits, in terms of her role in the story. She has a bow and arrow, she fights, she's a scientist. Like she does all these traditionally masculine things, even though she is absolutely a woman. One of the other major characters in the story is her best friend, Riley, who is a young man. He turns 18 over the course of the book, and he has a bunch of traditionally feminine interests. Like he wants to be a medic, which is a very female-dominated role in this story. Like only women are medics, basically. It's like the one thing that they have. So he wants to be the traditional soft healer. He's very empathetic, very soft. A lot of his fighting, so to speak. He doesn't fight. He's more of a pacifist, but he does fight back and rebel against, the system in more quiet ways. He's basically been also committing heresy, kind of like Sarah, but very quietly for like 3 years now. So he's kind of, I am doing this and I am fighting. I'm just doing it a little more sneakily because my father is the governor of this city, and he will murder me if he finds out what I've been doing. Like he killed my best friend's mom. So,
Wow. That's a lot to just like.
Yeah, no, it's a whole thing.
Between those two, I can only imagine.
Riley and Olivia have always been best friends. They kind of like grew up together.
Okay.
But like Riley's dad is the governor of this town, and he is just
her mom.
He is horrible. Like Riley spoke out against that, and it was just everything. And as we see throughout the course of the story, Augustus is, of course, emotionally and psychologically abusive toward his son and wife. Because why not?
Yeah, I mean, it would fit the small bits and pieces you've already laid out there about him, of how brutal he is about things and executing people that are. You would think would be close to him if his daughter's best friend's with his son.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, he has a very specific idea of like, I want my son and my family to look like this. And Riley's like, I don't want to do that though. And he is like, well, you're gonna. And Riley's like, no. And that's their whole thread throughout the story.
Yeah. But I also see why he would be more like passive about like his active part in that. Because it literally could cause his family's world to implode. And it would probably affect more than just him, like, in his family.
Riley is really fun to write. All of these characters, in Citadel especially, is just really fun because I just like subverting the usual gender roles and tropes and finding new ways of how they would interact with them, and then how they would interact with the so-called demons of the forest who have no patriarchy. They have no sexism. They're like, well, when Olivia's out there, she basically meets a transgender chimera. That's what they call themselves. And they just don't care. They're like, it's whatever. Like, can you hunt? Can you fly? Can you fight? Can you take care of the little cubs? Can you watch after the home? Can you, make sure we all have food or weave, or you can? Great. We're good.
Sweet. Yeah, that's really all that matters. I'm going to shift gears a little bit because I'm curious to know, did you always know you wanted to write stories?
Oh, yeah. No, it's always been a part of me. It was always an interest when I was like in elementary school, but it definitely became an absolute passion in middle school. When I first wrote the very, very first crappy draft of Citadel before it was Citadel. And I made my dad read it. And, but it was, yeah. And then I hit high school and I'm just like, this is what I want to do, like as a career. And my parents, they're both also authors. That apple plopped straight down.
Yeah.
And they basically sent me down. They're like, you want to do this? We support you. We love you. Go ahead. But it is very harsh. The average income for a writer is something like $5,000 a year. It's very difficult. So we highly recommend that you, when you're going into colleges and all that stuff, that you pursue another career and then work on the writing thing on the side. Because that's basically what my mom did. And that's basically what I've had to do too. I'm still technically doing that. I work part-time at a deli just to make ends meet. Most writers, something like 98%, have to have a secondary job.
Yeah.
Because that's just the way it is. And especially now with inflation and, publishers haven't really changed their rates all that much since like the 70s.
Yeah.
So it's, you just kind of gotta do what you gotta do to stay fed, to stay happy, to stay sheltered, and then write when you can.
Yeah, that's true. And I like that they supported that dream instead of pushing, like getting a lot of pushback to do something else and not pursue that. I know that is a common thing, I feel like, because I went through kind of the same thing and got a lot of pushback for wanting to do creative stuff. And I ended up not doing it until later in life. So
yeah. And like, you kind of get it because the parents want what's best for you, and writing and creative and art, they're fun and they're passionate and they give us life, but they're not stable. It's like, okay, how are you going to pay for health insurance? How are you going to put food on the table? How are you going to keep a roof over your head? How are you going to, support yourself if the income is so flippy? And I grew up with it. My father, he writes as a hobby. But he works for the state of Minnesota. So he's always had the stable income, like the exact amount every month. That's what we use for the mortgage. My mother is a career author. So she would get these big checks, but it would be she's a New York Times bestseller. It would be very almost random. It was literally lobsters or ramen noodles.
Yep.
Depending entirely on where it was. So, and they pointed that out to me. I'm like, I know. And then I actually start living it now. And I'm like, fuck, this is stressful. How did my mother not go insane?
And it's like, we have like a whole other ball game than what they had back then, because there's so much more now to like deal with and like.
Yeah, and my mother had an easier time getting day jobs, even though she never went to college. She just has a high school education, but she was working as like secretary and personal assistant. By the time her writing career took off, she had just landed like a 6-figure a year desk job working as a personal assistant to like this big CEO or whatever. And she turned it down because she's like, I want to write full time. And luckily she had my dad with her who had just also gotten a pretty big promotion. So he was like, able to back her up and be like, hey, if it works, great. If it doesn't, we still got me and you can go back to your job and it's fine.
That is awesome.
Yeah. And I am single, happily single, but like, aromantic, asexual, no romantic or sexual attraction to anyone ever. So like, I am living my life and I love it, but like, I don't have that security blanket.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's tough. So I'm going to bring up the TikTok thing, because I saw you mentioned that you do, the cafe latte thing. That is really awesome. How do you make it work? Because like, Do you do chapters at a time? Like, how do you, I don't know, tell me how you do it.
So, actually, right after we're done with this is when I'm going to be filming that. What I do is I'm a huge planner. You know, in the writing community, you got planner versus pantser. Planners outline everything in advance, world building, all that stuff. Pantsers fly by the seat of their pants. They literally make it up as they go along. They're fucking nuts. They really are.
I can't say much. I started as a pantser, and I'm still like, I have tendencies, but I'm more like a planter. Like I'm more.
Yeah. No, most of us are somewhere in the middle. With the cafe latte series, I'm definitely pantsing it a little more than typical because it kind of came out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have time to prep it. But I do still prep all the scripts for it. I have like the next, like, I tend to go make weekly batches every day, preferably more, so that way I have a couple of days of buffer in case I get sick or, you know, my landlady decides to vacuum right outside my door, and so I have to postpone filming for a day. That happened yesterday. So I create them all in one batch. I edit them. And then I save them on my Google Drive. And then over the course of that week, I upload the Cafe Latte, which is about a cafe that is run by fairies. Ooh. That is in the morning. Every day, it's literally like the first thing I do when I wake up is I upload the new one. And then in the afternoon, those are for like memes or stolen from Tumblr or promotions for the Blackwing novella series or Citadel.
Ooh, I like that. That is really cool. Where did the inspiration for it come from?
Tumblr, and my own life. So I mentioned that I myself work in food service. Yeah. I've worked at this deli since October of 2020 because I got laid off from my sales job. And then I'm in Minnesota, so I had a really nice stretch of unemployment. And then when that ran out, a family friend of ours actually owns an Italian deli. And he needed help. Their business had been thriving throughout the entire time. So yeah, we were really happy and really proud of him for doing that. So I've been working there for 2.5 years now, and it's great. I'm not a huge fan of food service, the industry, but like my coworkers are great, managers are great, owner's a total goofball. The food is phenomenal. I get to eat it for free. It's great. So there's that. And then there was this Tumblr post about like, you know, what if there was a cafe that was run by fairies? Like, how would that work? And, you know, you got some stores that are absolutely fine. Like you do the trade, you give them the money, they give you the drink and you're good. But then you have others that try to trick you that are like, you know, free sample, or it's like, okay, well, like it's not actually free because you're a fairy, but thanks anyway. And I was just like, you know, what if there was a cafe run by fairies, and you know we're gonna make it fun and wholesome because that's, you know, just kind of what I like to do on social media. My social media and my books, in case you haven't noticed, are two different tones. Social media tends to be a lot more fun and funny. They're shorter, and it's just a nice little breath of fresh air against the shitstorm that is our lives. The books tend to be a bit darker. There's a lot more blood. There's more murder. They do have happy or at least bittersweet endings because I hate sad or tragic endings. I refuse. I revolt. So they got to be happy. But there is still a lot of shit to go through from point A to point B. So there is that. But like, it was really natural for me. I planned like the first two, you know, a fairy versus a Karen. You know, fairy versus, you know, a college kid who really needs a caffeine boost in the next 3 days because they got their own stuff going on. And I was like, well, if this works, great. But, you know, if it doesn't, it's fine. I've done several others like this where it's just like, you know, it's a fun little thing, but it doesn't really capture people's interest long term. Okay. This one caught people's interest long term. We are at like week 3 of this now. And they're loving the characters, and I'm loving the characters, and it's just really fun. We got merch coming out, which you can absolutely purchase on my website. The logo was designed by a fan at like 80% off for me because she loves the series so much, and I'm like, please let me give you some extra money for this. It's really beautifully done. And it just really brightens up people's day. Almost all the comments are just like, I watch this series every time I go to work because it brightens me up, or like it's so wholesome, or it just gives me a nice little serotonin boost.
Yeah.
Even when I do talk about some like darker stuff, like there's one of the human character, Jennifer Charles, is non-binary and an ex-drug addict and did some time in juvie because they have some family stuff going on. And there was a confrontation between them and their uncle. And it was dark, but it was still cathartic and still had that happy ending of JC basically just telling them, like, go fuck yourself. It's fine.
Yeah.
We got a vampire ex-boyfriend that's gonna be making an appearance.
Ooh.
Yeah, I've got like the next 50 skits outlined all in this document, and every time I go to work at the deli, I always get ideas for like at least anywhere from like 3 to 20 more.
Well, you get to people watch and you see
exactly
tables, and like the people you see that come in, like if you haven't worked in the food business at all, you wouldn't even believe it. Like,
yeah,
like,
no,
you're making that up. They're like, no, dude, this happened. Like, this stuff happens. So.
Reddit alone will tell you a lot. I'm very lucky in that the deli that I worked in, there's only been like 1 or 2 instances where I'm like, oh my God, like, holy shit. And like there was one instance where we're thinking like we should probably call the cops or something.
Yeah, I've had to do that on somebody before.
Yeah.
And it's not fun. I mean, it's been a long time, but like,
yeah, it still kind of haunts you a little bit. I will say that the vast majority of customers that I've worked with are really great, and they're really it's like 98% of them are fine. And even the ones where if you mess up their order or they make a mistake, or they're almost all the time they take it with good grace and good humor. Like, I didn't realize that, or like, oh, that's why the pizza was $40 instead of $20. I totally did the wrong thing, and that was fine. There's we got at the deli, we have a veterans and first responders discount, 10% off. And I incorporated that into Cafe Latte, which Bob, the fairy, has under Protectors of the Realm. Cause like, that's what the fairies call it. So that's like the military and veterans, the first responders, the doctors and the nurses, or healers as she calls them, are all under that. And that was yesterday's. And I got so many comments of like, please tell me there's a Protector of the Realm sticker or something, because I need that. And I'm like, well, there's going to be one now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I really like how you incorporated that. And two, like there's rarely the bad eggs that come in, but they make a lasting effect because you're just really happened. Like,
no. And then of course there are like really good employees, and there are like those employees that you're just like, oh my God, why were you hired? How like we've had a few of those too. I'm like, food service especially has such a high turnover rate. A lot of faces come and go. I've only worked there for 2.5 years, but I have the third most seniority out of everyone who works at the front end. The other two are guys who are the managers who've been doing this for like 20 years.
Yeah.
But everyone else, I've got like 6 to 7 other coworkers, and they've all been doing this for like, there's one who's been doing it for about 2 years, and the others who have been around 1 year or less. And it's a lot. And some of them, it's just like, it just didn't work out for whatever reason, or like they're college students, so they can only do this in the summer. And then others just like, are you high? Have you been high this whole time? You're not, you're just this stupid. Okay.
Yeah. With everything that you've got going on with the TikToks and the stories and everything, what does success look like for you? Like, how would you define it?
So I'm a Nichiren Buddhist. It seems like a segue, but bear with me here real quick. I'm a Nichiren Buddhist, and it's a type of Japanese Buddhism. And there's this idea within it called beauty, benefit, and good. And beauty is like, very subjective. It's what you enjoy. Benefit is like, it benefits society. Like, it gives you goodness, wholesomeness. Benefit, not benefit society, but more benefiting yourself. And then good is like, it benefits society. And so when you, when Nichiren Buddhists like myself are like going into the job field or looking for a career or something to do for most of our lives, our leaders are like, you should try to find something that gives you beauty, benefit, and good. Beauty being a job that you genuinely enjoy doing. Benefit being something that actually supports you financially, that you're able to put food on the table and have a savings account and all that stuff. And then good being a job that benefits society at large. So for me, I found what I'm doing with this job, content creating, writing, and it's given me beauty, a whole lot of beauty, and it's done a lot of good so far. A lot of people who said that they're positively impacted by my work, that they love the work. I throw in a lot of queer characters and women characters and characters with autism and characters with disabilities, characters of color, because I want to normalize diversity and bring that to the field. And just, you have some books like Citadel that are explicitly talking about classism and sexism and ableism and all that stuff. And then you got books like the Blackwing novella series. They're just like, it's just normalized. It's that those systems don't exist, but these people do. And they both work really well. So those are those two. I just got to work on the benefit part. I just got to keep doing that. But, we're getting there. As I get more book contracts, as I get more readers and followers, as Citadel comes out in June and I start getting the royalties from that, eventually I'm going to be able to start doing this full time and hopefully finally quit the food service job outside of Cafe Latte.
Yeah. But Cafe Latte is more than just food service. It's like the fun stuff.
Oh yeah, no,
it's a great description though.
Yeah, no, and like I do love having the Bob going against Karens and putting them in their place and all that jazz. But it's also really fun to just have them do character interactions and when the vampire ex-boyfriend shows up this week, it's not going to be a customer thing. It's going to be Bob dealing with her past type of thing. Yeah. And, some of the human characters maybe be in a little bit of trouble with this vampire who is not a good person. So,
yeah. Another question I like to bring up with every creative I chat with, and it was on the sheet too, is what do you do for self-care? And I know you mentioned that you're in a pretty good spot and everything, and that kind of ties into what we just talked about. But how do you keep your focus on things without letting this insane world that we are living in get to you?
Well, I don't push myself too far. Like I do prioritize sleep and food. I'm never that type of content creator who's like, I'm going to get only 4 hours of sleep tonight because I got to get this video done on time, even if it takes me all night, or like, I'm just going to skip my meals or, eat at my desk, whatever. It's like, I don't do that. No, like if the video is late, it's late. They'll live. It's fine. And if anyone has a problem with that, I don't care. They can deal with me when I'm hangry. Okay.
Yes.
So there's that. I go on long walks pretty much every day, rain or shine, be it, searing heat or 3 feet of snow. It is February, so we are dealing with the 3 feet of snow thing right now, and I don't care. And that just really helps clear my head, helps me breathe. I do have some hobbies that are like not, I don't let them become capitalized. Basically, they're just for me. They're not for anyone else. Like crocheting. I'm making eggs for my brother for his birthday because he really loves eggs. Yeah, he just likes to collect them. And I have way too much scrap yarn and a little bit of time on my hands, and we're at egg 9 right now. So I want to see how many I can make for him, and just throw them at him over the course of his birthday.
That could be a lot of fun. So.
I know, right? Friends and family, it's important, especially for introverted writers like myself, to like go out there and, remind the world that you exist. We're social creatures, even though we like to pretend that we're not. So like contact your friends and family and just chat about something else. Just taking care of yourself like that. Splurge every now and then on the good coffee or on the nice dinner if you can. Yeah. That's pretty much kind of how I take care of myself, and I keep my goals in mind, so I know exactly this is what I'm fighting for, so to speak.
Yes. Final question. If you could share a tip to authors that have just started their journey, they've just published their first book, what kind of tip or advice would you give them?
So I've only just now, I'm technically part of that group. I've only just now published my first novella under my name, Sam Alongi. Citadel is my debut novel. For the authors who have not yet published anything yet, who are still struggling, I hate to break it to you, but you're going to get a lot of rejection letters.
Oh, yeah.
Literally, you're going to be able to redo your living room wallpaper in just rejection letters before you find the literary agent and or editor who actually takes you on. And that's a good thing. You don't want just any literary agent or editor dealing with your book. You want someone who actually cares about it and who cares about you. So every rejection takes you closer to the one that accepts you. And when you do get published, not everyone's going to like your book. It can be the most objectively, gorgeously written story ever, and there's still going to be people who are like, I didn't like it, or I couldn't get into it, or I just couldn't relate to the characters. And that's fine. I don't like Stephen King. I can't do Stephen King. Yeah. I can't read Neil Gaiman. I can't do N.K. Jemisin. I've tried so many times.
Same.
I just can't do it.
No.
And that doesn't mean they're bad authors. It just means that I'm not a part of their audience. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. What you need to do is you need to find your audience. You need to find the people who just love you and your work, no matter what. Even if you're like me and you're like, why are you so obsessed with my work? It's not even that good. And they're like, it's amazing. It's phenomenal. It's fantastic. It's like, okay, it's going to feel really weird, but like, that's you're creating something not just for yourself but for them, and they are going to love it. You just got to find the people who will love it.
Nice.
They do exist. I promise you, they're out there.
Yes, they do, and it's weird when it happens. And I'm totally going to take back that was the last question because I'm not curious about.
Liar.
Yes.
Yakuza.
What are your thoughts on like self-publishing versus going like the traditional route with getting a agent,
publishing contract, and agent? So
yeah,
I've done both. The novella series is being self-published.
Okay.
I was going for speed there. Mm-hmm. And Citadel is traditionally published by Blackstone Publishing. Both have strengths and weaknesses, so it depends entirely on what your goals are, on what type of book it is. It all depends on you, and they're both very valid. So for self-publishing, this looks like the easier option, and in many ways it is. There's no gatekeepers. There is literally nothing stopping you from putting your rough draft out on Amazon Kindle and charging $50 for it. Nothing is stopping you from that. You're not going to make any sales, but nothing's stopping you. Like, you can say that you published your book, and it's true. But, if you want to do it right, if you want to polish it, if you want a nice cover, you do need editors, and you got to pay them. So the thing with self-publishing is that all that stuff that's already paid for by the traditional publishers, the editors, the cover, the copy, all that stuff. You got to pay for all that with self-publishing. So, and I lucked out because I had a couple of network connections from short stories and novella writing jobs that I did. He's doing it for free.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know. Well, free, more like a quid pro quo because he's also an author. So he's going to be, so basically, he's editing my stuff free of charge. And then when he writes stuff, I edit his stuff free of charge. So that's pretty cool. And that saved me a lot of time and money. For covers, getcovers.com. They're gorgeous and they're like $30. So you got to market it, but like it's so much faster. With traditional publishing, Citadel comes out this June 2023. I signed the contract in May of 2021. Dang. 2 years. It took a long time. Traditional publishing moves at the pace of an inchworm. So there's that, but you get the forward advance. They pay you up front for like when you sign. That was $10,000 minus what my agents took. You get another chunk when you finish with the edits, and you get another chunk upon publication. So there's that, and of course you don't have to pay for anything because they're paying for anything. If a publishing company demands that you pay for something, that is not a publishing company. That is a scam. Get out. So there's that, and you also have a whole team of people who are helping you like make the book the best book that it can be, with editors and everything else. You got a whole marketing team who's going to help you find your audience and get the word out about your book. There are a ton of resources with traditional publishing that just don't really exist in the self-publishing sphere yet. You kind of got to create your own network with that one, but it's already built in with the traditional publishing. So they're both very valuable. I went with traditional publishing for Citadel because I wanted that team. I wanted those resources. This is my debut novel. I wanted it to be good as possible, and that requires a team effort. And also, I liked the big paycheck. So there's that. And then I went self-publishing for the novella series, largely because they're novellas. And publishers and agents don't like selling those unless it's part of an anthology, because they can't make as much money off of them. So there's that. And I wanted something that was going to be quick and easy for me to churn out, because June 2023 was way too far away. And I wanted something to give to my audience now. I wanted something to help grow my audience right away, so that by the time Citadel comes out, I already have a readership that's ready and eager for more.
That is genius. And I like the thought behind all of that. Go ahead and tell our listeners and viewers where they can find you and your work.
So I have a website, CMAlongi. It's, basically just that, no periods, cmalongi.com. That's my website. That has, the links to everything. It's got all of my books there, free short stories. Most of them are fairy tale retellings. But if you want a nice little sample of what my writing style is like, go right there. You'll see the free short stories page up top, and you can help yourself to whatever I got there. You can also find me on TikTok, of course. That's c.m.alongi_author. That's where Cafe Latte is at. And then I'm also on Instagram, I think it's just CMAlongi, for that one. And I am right there too. Also, I have a YouTube channel. That's more for writers, though. If you need help with figuring out how to plot, how to character, all that jazz, CMAlongi on YouTube, it's right there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Hey guys, me again. Thank you for watching the show. I hope you enjoyed the book chat and everything we talked about. If you'd like to check out some of my work, you can find the link to my website below, or you can reach out to me through my website to be on the show yourself. Also, don't forget to check out the featured creatives' work. I super appreciate them taking time out of their day to be on the show. And also, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. We've got many new things coming in the future. So once again, thanks for watching. See you soon.